Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today I am doing the third installment of my DV memoir diaries. I tried to film, I'm filming during daytime, however it is snowing, grey sky, so I'll keep this short and sweet just because the light is very not ideal. And I also apologize, but you're gonna probably see two of these in a month. Usually I keep them once a month, but in January I didn't get around to film it, so I'm here doing it now. But usually it shouldn't be like this, it should be one a month. And this month for February I had to read The Blue Abyss by Jane C. Doe, which is a made-up name. And this is the story of this woman who actually recounts her story very briefly, I'd say, about how she experienced DV perpetrated by a law enforcement officer. And I think they moved, so she remarried this man and they moved to this town where he became a very prominent law enforcement member. I don't know if he was actually the chief, I think he was in charge though, for the most part. And this is her story of how she managed at the end to escape him and how things escalated pretty quickly, how he tried to basically kill her and she had to go and disappear basically from the radar. I think she's still on the run. He doesn't know where she is, and I think now he's not working anymore as a police officer, or not at least in that town, and he's also gone missing, so he's not being apprehended or anything of the sort. So that's why she's particularly cautious about recounting her story. It's pretty fairly recent as well, and I think there's no Goodreads reviews or anything, for example. I do not rate these, and I'm not going to rate this as well. Just about the writing. Now, this is clearly written by someone who's not usually an author, and it's also, I don't know if probably self-published, and I didn't have anything though particularly against the writing. There is only a couple of things that she just mentioned. For example, throughout the first part of her ordeal, she has her son with her, and she's adamant that she's not going to leave this man unless she can go with her son, unless her and her son are safe. And then all of a sudden the son disappears. Like we don't know what happens, we just know that she takes the car and she flees. So I was very confused about that, and we kind of now know toward the end she mentions that she's still in contact with both her sons. But I don't think she left the son with this man, because I think she would never have done that. But we don't know what happened to the son. So there are a few things in the plot that actually do not add up, basically. Like, he just disappears, there's no answer. So that was probably something that kind of bothered me a little bit, just because when you raise the stake and then you have got a kid, especially a kid, which is your main reason for staying and taking the abuse for so long, then how come that he just disappears and you don't tell us what happens to him and you're just fleeing? So yeah, I think she also does not get into much of the abuse itself. She tells us a couple of instances where it's actually violent with her, but we don't get the majority of abuse. We don't know what this woman went through, and it can be that it's too early for her to tell, which is totally fine. So just if you want to see, like, it's not a lengthy account, it's not very specific, there's not much meat. I've, for example, read other memoirs that were more detailed, where we kind of have more of, we see this thing building up leading to where we are at the end, and instead here is very brushed. So that's just for your information. This is a particular kind of abuse. So unfortunately, because there was so little for me to unpack, it's very difficult for me to actually do a proper review. This kind of touches upon what I've already said in my second installment, where the most tricky part, the most dangerous part is usually when you decide to leave. And this reflects that as well. And it's also very appalling what happens to this woman, because she gets to this refuge, the first one she gets to, and the manager of the refuge treats her very poorly. And I was absolutely shocked that, because this is recent, we are probably talking about 5 years ago or something, or maybe not even that, I was really disgusted on how people that run these kind of refuges are not trauma informed, are not ready, are not even professional, are not even good human beings. Because even if you don't have the training, if you don't understand, you would never treat a woman who's on the run scared the way she was treated. So that was awful, and I'm glad that then she moved to another state, I believe, and another refuge where things got better. So it was a poor woman. She had a rough deal in life, and she had such misfortune in meeting so many shitty people This other man who is a police officer or something of the sort is again discussing how people are covering up for him, and how to these days, because again it's recent, these things are allowed to happen, and because he was a law enforcement, he was the law, so there was nothing for this woman to go past him. And when she tried to actually go to the higher levels of judicial, and she tried to get to a judge and all that, no one paid their attention, and it's very concerning that this can happen. I think this takes place in the USA, I'm pretty sure. It tells me that there is so much more we need to do as a society to actually help these women, and then how much I thought we were a good place, and this actually taught me that no, we are very far behind, especially in some countries which should be very advanced country. Things are really still horrible, and because someone is a police officer doesn't mean he cannot be a shitty human being. As we know, as a lot of issues that have been in the news nowadays have demonstrated, like, police officers are human beings, and there are some good ones and there are some bad ones. It's just very sad to think that when we encounter bad ones, we just have to put up with it, then nothing gets done properly, and they basically get away with it. I don't want to come across as someone who's something against the police, because I think the police is fundamental, and the majority of police officers are amazing. I just think that we should deal more fairly with those who are not. It was a sad read, because this woman is still on the run, she's still afraid. This man, as probably one of his oldest old girlfriend, went missing, no one ever found her, so he's clearly potentially a killer, and it's just out there, and this is freaking scary, thinking about him just out there doing this probably to another woman. So I hope it gets caught at one point, and I hope that someone does something, although I will never know probably. This kind of domestic violence is called Oidv, which is Officer Involved Domestic Violence, and I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, I thought it was just considered a normal DV, and I thought, yes, of course there are police officers that probably are violent at home, but I never delved into much of the topic, which I might do in the future because it's really interesting, and again, it's very taboo. Like, domestic violence is already taboo, but Oidv is very, very taboo, and indeed there is so little out there. I don't know if I can find any other book regarding that written by survivor, but I'll have a look. The last point before I wrap this up is that she kind of dated him for a year, and he was amazing, charming and all of that, and then they married, and he turned, like, in the span of a night, basically into this awful monster. And at the beginning she was like, oh, he's stressed because of a job, things will turn out okay. Just keep in mind that usually they don't. Like, if you have been with a person and then you see a dark side of them, it usually gets worse unless they do get help. If you suspect that, you know, you might be a risk, or that he's done that a couple of times already, it's very naive to think that these people who can tell you horrible things or even raise their hands on you, they just did it because they were nervous, or it's just a particular point in their life and will never do them again. People that can do that once, they will do it again and again and again if they don't get help. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely something like she thought, oh, it was okay, it's just, you know, just a moment, and then turned worse and worse and worse until she had to flee, and she's still on the run. As I said, I don't want to ruin anybody's party, but no, things do not get well. Like, I've never heard in my experience as of now, in a few years, that people change for the better without help or support, or just, you know, they stop being violent, they stop being abusive. It just doesn't really happen. Thank you for watching. I'll be reading another book next month. I always leave down below some numbers. These are UK number, but if you are in USA or any other part of the world, I am sure that there are numbers you can call. Just go on Google and research. There are people out there that can help you if this is your situation. If you want to stay anonymous, and if you want to leave a comment, then, you know, we can have a discussion about that down below. Thank you for watching. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time. Ciao.